Okay, it just did the recording on.
Mm.
Okay, I believe today's daf is Tzadik Gimel, and I believe we were at the bottom of Tzadik Beis and Beis, and I believe what we were discussing was a machlokes between Rab Nachman and Rab Sheshes, and the machlokes was if somebody was b'derech rechaika, somebody was not in the Zohar, and the Gemara's the Mishnah today on Amud Beis is going to give us the exact parameters of what are the parameters of derech rechaika. If someone's derech rechaika and he decided that he wants to make the carbon anyway, and he hired somebody to make the carbon on his behalf, would it be a good carbon? So according to Rab Nachman, it's hortza, it's a good carbon. And according to Rab Sheshes, it was loy hortza, it's not a good carbon. So Zok to Gemara, Rab Sheshes, we know aminalo. How do I know that it's not hortza if someone is b'derech rechaika? The Tanya we learned, Rabbi Kiva says, Nemar Tomei, referring to the two conditions that allow us to make a Pesach Sheni or that force us to make a Pesach Sheni, depending on how you learn. It says Tomei, the Nemar b'derech rechaika. And it also says that somebody who is b'derech rechaika also brings the Pesach Sheni. So let's compare the two, because they are listed together. Ma Tomei, shesipek b'yodi lasois, just like by Tomei. Rashi tells us, you're ready, you're there, and you're ready to go. Now, the Torah is preventing you from doing it, but technically, there's no physical barrier preventing you from participating in the Korban Pesach. Yet the Torah says, no, I don't let you. Af derech rechaika. So too, when the Torah tells you that by derech rechaika you should make it on Pesach Sheni, nami shesipik b'yadei lasais ve'ino yosa. Even though he can technically get back on time, and he could have other shluchim make, but he can't get back on time to make the shechita, I'm sorry, but he can have other shluchim, he can have a representative make the carbon pesach for him. Nevertheless, we don't let him do it. Rab Nachman Amalach, Rab Nachman is going to tell you, Rabbi Kiva L'Tamei, the Kasavar in Sheichtin V'Zarkin al Tamei Sheretz. Rabbi Kiva is L'Tamei, who was in Sheichtin V'Zarkin al Tamei Sheretz. Now, what is Tamei? Tamei is even the Tumah Sheretz. And a Tumah Sheretz is someone who's only going to be Tamei for today, but come tonight, when the Zman Achila arrives, he'll be able to eat it. Rabbi Kiva holds, Ein Sheichtin V'Zarkin al Tamei Sheretz, meaning even somebody who will be able to make it back for the Achila, and he can have other people take care of the processing of the carbon for him, Rabbi Kiva says you wouldn't be allowed to. So too, b'derech rechaika, where technically you can have somebody take care of it for you, you would not be able to make Pesach Rishon, you'd be pushed off to Pesach Sheni. Now, no svirle, but Zok Reb Nachman, I don't hold like that. I hold command Amar Sheichtin V'Zarkin al Tamei Sheretz, which means that someone who's not able to do it now could have somebody do it on his behalf, and therefore he could be participating in the Korban Pesach tonight. So therefore, it does not exclude derech rechaika, because derech rechaika could still be comparable to Tamei. Just like Tamei, if I'm not eligible now, I can have someone do it for me on my behalf and then come tonight and eat. So too, with derech rechaika, I can be Yosy when somebody else brings it on my behalf. So this opened my eyes to a lot of different things. Because what this tells me is, we had a machlokes Ula and Rav, if Sheichtin V'Zarkin al Tamei Sheretz, which I thought was a machlokes Amorim. Suddenly we just threw Rabbi Kiva into the mix, and now we're making it into a machlokes Tanoim. The Gemara never said Leimen Katanoi, so I'm not sure how that worked. And the same thing, a minute ago we had a machlokes between Rab Nachman and Rab Sheshes, and now suddenly it's telling Rabbi Kiva. So it's really Rab Nachman and Rab Sheshes are arguing in a machlokes Tanoim. Right, but somebody must argue on them. Otherwise, how could anybody argue? How could Rab Nachman say, and I hold not like Rabbi Kiva? There must be somebody arguing Rabbi Kiva. So usually when we encounter a machlokes Amorim which parallels a machlokes Tanoim, the Gemara asks Leimen Katanoi. And here the Gemara seems to
I'm just wondering, what I meant when I said Rabbi Akiva is we don't say Rebbe Akiva, we say Rebbe Akiva.
do you think it's in the Moira? Oh, maybe it's in the Moira and it's not the Tana. I hear it. Makes sense.
Yosy.
Duvi and Frank, I'm very sorry. I sent out a message yesterday that I want to learn at 5:30, but I was actually sending it out in response to the survey that the shul sent out for Purim Day. And I meant Purim Day since davening, the main meeting is going to be 6:30. I want to daven at 5:30. In the meantime, most of the people thought I meant today. Shocking. I didn't write Purim Day. Why would you think otherwise? It was a stupid move on my behalf. It was careless when I sent out my WhatsApp, and I really apologize. Someone thought it was a Purim stick. I'm thinking it was a Purim stick. That's the most sadistic thing someone could do.
Not a
So
problem.
sorry about that. Sorry. Did you see the WhatsApp?
No.
Yeah. I saw
So
it.
you also thought I meant today.
It's at 5:32. I was up
Yeah,
already. Don't worry.
I'm very, very sorry. That was a horrible mistake. I meant for Purim Day.
I didn't see it, and I wasn't up. So.
Oh, but how were you supposed to know I meant Purim Day if I didn't write Purim Day? Like, it was a craziness on my behalf. I apologize.
I have a
Was it to delete?
question. Sorry. Yeah. So with the Sheretz though, it's a vadai that he's going to be tar tonight, right? Or pretty much, right? With a
No, it's
Dirk
about that. He goes to the mikveh for sure.
right. So, but Dirk Choika though, it's kind of up in the air. So I mean, depending
It's
on where
interesting
he
you bring that up.
is.
So
Yeah.
Tosfos told us on Ahmed Bays that he's far enough away that if he walks, he's not going to make it. But he can take the express train. He can hire a horse, a stallion, and he could do something that's out of the ordinary. He can upgrade to first class so that he can get on the earlier flight. So that is the question if that's good enough. But Avadi, he has to get back by night to eat because you cannot shecht, you cannot be part of a carbon if at the time of the processing, there's no way you'd be able to get there to eat it. So he'd have to have been able to get there to eat it. Otherwise, he's not considered an eichel. Because let's see the Gemara back to Tanur Abanim. Elu sha'oishin es hasheni. This is a list of those who make the Pesach Sheni. Hazovin, which are males. Zavais are females. Mitzayrain, males. Mitzayrais, females. Vinidais, females again. Ubayel nidais, males. Hayaldais, and females. Hashagig, and those who were shagig, they forgot that today was Erev Pesach. Via anusim, and those who are not able to be there for reasons that are out of their control. Mazidin, and even people who bedavke did not bring the carbon Pesach, they still bring the carbon Pesach Sheni. The Tamei, the Shahaya B'derech HaChagah. Vrek de Braisa, Im Kain Lama Nemer Tamei, if there are so many different examples of people who do make Pesach Sheni, why did the Torah itemize Tamei? Lama Nemer. Lama Nemer, what type of question is it? Why the Torah said Tamei? That's to tell you the Boil Mevid Berisha Loishav Kinulei. It has to say Tamei, because Tamei is something where I would do it, but the Rebbeinu doesn't let me do it. So it has to speak out Tamei. It has to speak out that Tamei makes by Pesach Sheni to tell us that he may not participate in the carbon for Pesach Rishon. Elam Kain Lama Nemer B'derech HaChagah. The question is, why did the Torah itemize B'derech HaChagah? Zok the Gemara, Zok the Brisa, Lepoitroi Minakaris, to pater him from chorus. If he was B'derech HaChagah, he technically could have not be. Who asked him to be B'derech HaChagah? He should have made previous arrangements to be at Yerushalayim, at Azorah for Erev Pesach. He didn't do that. Kamash V'lon, he's still pater from chorus since he wasn't there in the immediate area on Erev Pesach. Zok the Gemara, Uchaman D'Amar Horza. This would only fit according to the Man D'Amar if you hold that if you're B'derech HaChagah, you'd be able to still participate in the carbon. Because if you hold like Rab Sheshes, that if you're B'derech HaChagah, you cannot participate in the carbon, then the same way I need the Torah to itemize Tamei to tell me that you're not allowed to break the carbon, I would have needed the Torah to tell you B'derech HaChagah as well, to teach you that in such a situation, even if you want to make the carbon, you cannot make the carbon. Yet this brisa doesn't say that. So it must be that this brisa holds Horza, like Rab Nachman, that in fact, if you're B'derech HaChagah, you would be able to participate in the carbon. If you didn't, you're a potter and you could make it by Pesach Sheni. So once again, here's Clara brisa. This is not anymore in the Gemara, this is Clara brisa. So now the Gemara goes off on a tangent. We just listed off a brisa that had some men and some women that are all subject to the chiyuv of Pesach Sheni. Frank the Gemara, Isha b'Sheni mi mechayva? Is a woman chayiv at all in Pesach Sheni? Well, Tanya, we have another brisa that seems to indicate that women are not chayiv in Pesach Sheni, because we don't yochel lo yihu oisin. You might think that you don't make a Pesach Sheni. Ela tamei nefesh. Only someone who's a tamei nefesh. B'shari b'derech HaChagah, Zavin u'mitzayrainu ba'yonidus minayin, and you could see that the Brisa obviously omitted any female. So you see that there's no females. I look at the limud Tamadaimer ish. So you see that it's only a male-dominated carbon. Only men bring a Pesach Sheni, not like the Friedrich Brisa that lists off women as also being mechuyev in Pesach Sheni. And for the Gemara Lo Kasha, Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, we actually had on Tzadik Aleph a machlokes whether or not women are rishus or not rishus, if they can bring it to agav a group or not agav a group. So Rabbi Yosy holds that they're mechuyev, and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon hold they're not mechuyev. So therefore, it's not fair because the two brises are going according to two different tanoim. Let me just quickly take a peek at the machlokes that we had between Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon. It was right over here. Isha berishin sheichna la b'fnei atzmo b'sheni oishna tzatvel lachem. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosy Omer Isha b'sheni sheichna la b'fnei atzmo ben tzarech lem berishin. So Rabbi Yosy holds the sheni she's involved in, and Rabbi Yehuda holds the sheni she's involved in. Rabbi Shimon says Isha berishin oishna tzatvel lachem b'sheni ein sheichna la kalikir. So you see, Rabbi Shimon holds that a woman cannot participate at all in Pesach Sheni. Zok to Gemara weiter. Tana Rabbanan. Chayiv kares ala rishon, the chayiv kares ala sheni. Divrei Rebbe. Rebbe holds you could be chayiv kares for Pesach Rishon and you could be chayiv kares for Pesach Sheni. Dr. Rashi, this cannot mean that if someone purposely violated Pesach Rishon, he gets kares, and if he purposely violated Pesach Sheni, he gets kares again, because kares you can only get once. It doesn't mean that if someone violated b'shoigig, he brings a chatos by Pesach Rishon, and if he violated b'shoigig by Pesach Sheni, you bring a chatos, because you don't bring a carbon chatos for the chayv krisis of a nasei. The only time you bring a chatos for a shoigig of a chiv kares, that's only if it's a loisaseh. But the assay of carbon Pesach, if you don't do it b'shoigig, you're not muchayev to bring a carbon chatos. Therefore, Rashi says the case would only be relevant if somebody became eligible to bring the carbon Pesach in between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. I'm speaking about two different people. A person who violates Pesach Rishon will be chayiv kares. But what about a fellow who didn't violate Pesach Rishon? For instance, he was a cotton. He was a cotton by Pesach Rishon, or he was a goy by Pesach Rishon, and he was an esgayer in the middle. He became a gadol in the middle. So there would also be an independent trigger of kares from the Pesach Sheni. Now, this leads us to a little bit of an interesting shiloh, because the Rambam paskins like Rebbe, and the Rambam paskins that if a cotton becomes a gadol in between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni, he's mechuyev to bring the Pesach Sheni. So clearly, paskin like Rebbe. Yet the Rambam also paskins that if a cotton brings a carbon Pesach when he's still a cotton, he doesn't have to bring another carbon Pesach by Pesach Sheni once he became a gadol. So the question is, if the Rambam learns that there's an independent chiyuv to bring the Pesach Sheni, not linked to my responsibility to have brought the Pesach Rishon, so then how could the cotton be yoyed to that mitzvah with the carbon Pesach that he brought for the Pesach Rishon, which was before he was mechuyev in mitzvahs? That's the problem with the Rambam. This shaila is also relevant on Tisha B'Av. The halacha is, we fearzach, that when Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, we fast on Sunday, right? Well, what happens if you have such a nidcha and you have a child whose bar mitzvah is Yud B'Av? So does he have? So the year that he becomes bar mitzvah, does he have to fast on Sunday? If it's a nidcha and the main tainus is really on Shabbos, so he didn't have a chiv on Shabbos, so he shouldn't have to fast the nidcha. But maybe he does have to. So the Divrei Mechil paskins that in fact he does have to fast, because when Chazal originally set up Tisha B'Av, they set it up lechatchila that when it comes out on Shabbos, it's officially going to be on the 10th day of Av, and therefore it's not considered a replacement. Sunday is not considered a replacement for fasting on Shabbos. Sunday was their original takana when they set it up. But getting back to Pesach, how could we explain the Rambam? So they bring a raya from this Rambam that if a katan does a mitzvah, when he's a katan, he's still yoytzer a mitzvah. And it was relevant in a different shaila. A child who his father did not make a pidyon ben on him. And he made a pidyon ben on himself while he was a katan. And then he became a gadol. The question is, does he have to do the pidyon again? So they say, according to the Rambam, you wouldn't have to, because the Rambam holds that even though someone did a mitzvah when he was only a katan, he is still yoytzer a mitzvah. Let's see the Gemara weiter. Rav Nosson Neimer, chayiv koros ala rishon upater ala sheni. You'll be chayiv koros for violating the mezid Pesach Rishon, but you're not chayiv koros for violating Pesach Sheni. So Rashi says, im shogag b'rishon, if the first Pesach you missed the shogig, the hezid b'sheni, but the mezid you omitted, you did not bring the carbon for Pesach Sheni, you'll be part from koros because the trigger for koros can only be Pesach Rishon. Rab Chananya ben Akavi Omer, af al harishon einay chayiv koros ela imkein lo yasas hasheni. You have to violate both the mezid in order to be chayiv koros. But if you only violated the mezid Pesach Rishon, then and Pesach Sheni was b'shogig, you're saved from your koros. The ozdu l'tamayu, and this three-way machlokes hinges on a different machlokes. The Tanya Gershon is Gayer bein shnei Pesachim. A ger who became a ger after the first Pesach, before the second Pesach. The chen katan shehigdol bein shnei Pesachim. My birthday is Chavtes Nisan, so I became a gadol in between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. So the halacha is chayiv lasos Pesach Sheni divrei Rebbe. According to Rebbe, that katan is mechuyev to bring a Pesach Sheni, because Pesach Sheni is an independent chiyuv, as Rabbi said, and there'd be a chiyuv koros independently for it, as we said earlier. Rab Nosson Omer, kol shezakuk l'rishon zakuk l'sheni, kol she'eni zakuk l'rishon ein zakuk l'sheni. Rab Nosson said you're chayiv koros al rishon, but you're not chayiv koros for the sheni. So the main one is the rishon. So therefore, Rab Nosson would hold here, since you were not mechuyev to bring the Pesach Rishon, because I was still a katan at the time. Therefore, I'm not mechuyev to bring the Pesach Sheni. That's Rabbi Nosson says. What is the machlokes? Very simple. Rabbi Saber Sheni regal b'fnei atzmai. Who? Rabbi holds this Pesach Sheni is a standalone, independent yom tov. That's what there's a chiyuv koros for it, and that's why this child who became a gadol before Pesach Sheni mechuyev to bring the Pesach Sheni. If Nosson Savar Sheni tashlum in the rishon. Sheni is only tashlum in the rishon if you missed the carbon Pesach for one of the valid reasons. Then you have to bring a tashlumin. However, tikkun l'rishon loy maskenlei, but it's not going to fix it. So if someone violated the mezid Pesach Rishon, he could be mashlim the carbon, but he won't fix his chiyuv koros. So therefore, from that he learns Rav Nosson that so someone who was a katan who wasn't even included at all in the mitzvah of Pesach Rishon, he won't have to bring a Pesach Sheni. However, it's not going to fix. It's not going to solve it. If he was a mechuyev of Pesach Rishon and he was bemazed over, he'll still be chayiv koros, and it will not help. Hilcha chayiv koros ala Rishon. Therefore, as Rav Nosson said, you're chayiv koros for Pesach Rishon, afilu asas hasheni, even if you made Pesach Sheni. Upater ala Sheni, but he's pater from any chiyuv for Pesach Sheni. Im shagag b'rishon v'hezid b'sheni. The halas lechiyuv b'bampanavshe b'rishon ari shagag. Rav Nosson says the main Pesach is Pesach Rishon, and therefore that's the only yom tov that can trigger a chiyuv koros. Rab Chananya ben Akavi Savar. I'm sorry.
According to Rabbi, if he says it's standalone yom tov, then even if you brought the Pesach Rishon, you still have to should raise the Pesach Sheni. I don't get it.
Well, the Torah specifically says this standalone yom tov. If you didn't bring your Pesach Rishon, then you bring a Pesach Sheni.
Then it's fair, so it's not a standalone yom tov.
No, when we say standalone, is it an independent chiyuv or not? But even if it's an independent chiyuv,
that lashon alone says it's not independent. It's dependent on the Rishon.
I hear. Of course, it's technically dependent, but the question is from a halachic perspective, is it the main yom tov or not? Would you be chayav chorus for the non? But yeah, of course it depends. The Mitzias, it's linked. The Mitzias, you only bring a Pesach Sheni if you didn't bring a Pesach Rishon. That's not disputable, so you're right about that. Okay, Zok to Gemara. If someone violated Pesach Rishon b'mezid, he could still fix it by bringing the Pesach Sheni, because it actually will be misaken Pesach Rishon. Like Reb Chananya b'Dekavia said, until someone violates both Pesach Rishon b'mezid and Pesach Sheni b'mezid, he wouldn't be chayv koros. Ushloshton mikra echad darshu, and they all darshan the same pasuk, but they extracted different meaning from this pasuk. And it says in the pasuk, let's look at it inside. V'ish, it's base. V'ish asher hu tahar, if somebody was tahar, uvederech lehaya, and he wasn't on a derech l'chayta, and im kol zeh v'choda lasvis haPesach, and he purposely missed bringing the korban Pesach, and nichrisa hanefesh hahi me'ameh, such a person will have kares. And then the pasuk goes on and starts talking about something else that is the subject of the machlokes. Ki korban Hashem lo hikriv, because he didn't bring the korban, but my adai at the right time. Cheta yisa ha'ishahu. Now, ki we know could mean ki because he didn't bring the korban, and it could mean he gets kares for Pesach Rishon because he didn't bring the korban. That's one thing that it could mean. It could also mean ki korban Hashem. Ki could also be used as a whole new thing. Ki yechta. There's many psukim that start with ki, and it's a new incident. It's talking about if this and this happens, then this is the halacha. So it might be referring to Pesach Sheni. Ki korban Hashem lo hikriv. If someone doesn't bring a korban, meaning Pesach Sheni, at the right time, cheta yisa. So this ki korban might be. This ki korban is the key to the machlokes. But it could either be an explanation of why you're chayav kares for the Pesach Rishon, or it could be talking about a whole new thing. And now we're going to see the three ways to interpret this second half of the pasuk. So let's have a look. Rabbi Savar v'chada lasas haPesach v'nichrisa d'lo abed b'rishon. So up until the word ki is referring to the Pesach Rishon, and it's very explicit. If someone b'mezid doesn't bring the Pesach Rishon, he is mechuyev kares. Then the Torah talks about a whole new subject. Inami, as a whole new subject, ki korban Hashem lo hikriv, if someone doesn't bring the korban of Hashem, and Rabbi learns that referring to the Pesach Sheni, korban Hashem lo hikriv v'mayado is b'sheni, and he gets kares. Why does he get kares? Because it says cheta yisa ha'ishu. The problem is it doesn't say anything about kares. It uses the word cheta yisa. How do you see from the word cheta yisa that the oynish is kares? Umimai the ha cheta yisa karesu. How do you know the word cheta yisa means kares? So that takes us to a whole new shayla. There are two psukim that talks about a similar issue, which is lo yaleinu negadef es Hashem. And it says as follows: V'nefesh asher yaseh asher taseh b'yod rama mino ezrach u'minager. So someone who curses the Rebbeinu Shalom as Hashem hu megadef v'nichris ha'nefesh hi mekerav hama. So someone who curses the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's black and white that there's a chiyuv kares. But there's another pasuk that's not 100% clear what it's referring to. The next pasuk is Bnei Yisrael Tadavar Lemar Ish Ish Ki Yikalel Elikav V'Nosa Chetay. And there's a shaila: is this pasuk referring to the same thing that this pasuk is referring to? And if it is, then the V'Nosa Chetay in this pasuk means kares, because this pasuk clearly says that Megadev as Hashem is kares. But we're going to see that there are those who learn that this pasuk is not referring to Megadev, and therefore you wouldn't necessarily know that for this pasuk there's a chiyuv kares. So it says by us cheta yisa. It says by this pasuk cheta v'nasa cheta. So the Gemara learns. So the Gemara kasavar megadev haynim avarach Hashem. This Tana Rebbe holds that the two psukim that we just quoted are referring to the same act. Uksiv b'avarach Hashem v'nasa cheta. And by b'avarach Hashem, of course, it's lashon saginor, meaning it's saying mevarach, but it doesn't mean mevarach. Which compares this Mevarach Hashem to our case of omitting to bring the korban Pesach Sheni. The Gomer Hai Chetay Dahacha Mechetay Dahasha. And we could learn the word Chetay that it says by Pesach Sheni to the word Chetay that it says by Mekalas Hashem. Ma Lahalan Kares. Just like over there it means Kares because of the other pasuk that discusses the same parsha and says a chiv kares, afka nami kares. So that's how Rabbi learns the pasuk. Quite simple. Rabbi Noson's over. Rabbi Noson holds that they're not two independent. They're not two independent mitzvahs. Rabbi Noson's over. The first half of the pasuk, just like Rebbe is talking about the Pesach Rishon, someone omitted to bring the carbon Pesach, and he learns the high key lashon dahahu, and key is a lashon of because of. It's an explanation to the pasuk before. The pasuk says by Pesach Rishon you get kares. Why? Because this is the pasuk says the carbon Hashem lehikiv b'may adai b'rishon. So when the pasuk says that he gets kares because he didn't bring the carbon of Hashem, ki carbon Hashem lehikiv, it's going back on Pesach Rishon. Why does he get kares? Because he didn't bring Hashem's carbon. It's a little bit repetitive. But then the problem is going to be, why does the Cheta Yisa Ishahu? We already told us what the oynish is for omitting Pesach Rishon. And that is v'nichas nefesh. So he reads the pasuk, v'isha who Torah v'derech lahaya v'chad lasses of Pesach. He didn't do Pesach Rishon. He's chayav kares. Why is he chayav kares? He carbon Hashem lahikri b'mayadai, because he didn't bring the Pesach Rishon. Now we're stuck with what does it mean Cheta Yisa Ishahu? Why does it need to repeat these words if we just said the nichas? So Zok Gemara, this is how Rab Nosson will deal with Cheta Yisa Ishahu. He'll say exactly the opposite. According to Rebbe, Cheta Yisa was for us to be able to learn from a Kal Hashem, just like over there, your Chayav Koresh. So to hear your Chayav Koresh. Rab Nosson is going to do exactly the opposite. So Hi Cheta Yisa my Avidlay, he's going to Kosav Megadef Lav Hanim of Hashem. Those two psukim that we discussed are not referring to the same Aveira. Megadev as Hashem is someone who curses Hashem. But this pasuk that says, Ishish ki yikala lekov, what that means is someone who's singing and dancing praises for Avodah Zarah. That's what that's referring to, which is a whole new and independent Isser. How do you know that one is Chayiv Koresh for this whole new independent Isser of singing and dancing with praises to the Avodah Zarah? All it says for the Einish in that pasuk is V'nasa Chetai. We don't know what V'nasa Chetai means. But if you could learn from us, by us, if V'nasa Chetai by us, as Reb Nosson learned, is speaking about the Pesach Rishon, and we know the Einish for the Pesach Rishon is Kares, so now we know V'nasa Chetai is referring to Kares. So the V'nasa Chetai that it says by Pesach Rishon, which is how Reb Nosson learns, is just there to teach us that the V'nasa Chetai by Yikal Alakav, which means singing, Miras versus Shpachas, to an Avodah Zarah, that there's a Chi of Kares for that as well. If this is not an avodah, this is just singing. It's not one of the official avodas. It's either the avodas are hashtachava, bowing is there's bowing. There's four primary avodas that no matter which avodas are you do it to, you chayv misa.
What happens with the avodah of the avodah Zorah?
Oh, so that's what I want to say. Right. So if the avodah of the avodah is the dafka singing and dancing, there will be a chayv misa. Because if you know avodah Zorah triggers a chayv misa. A, if you do one of the primary avodas like bowing down, or B is if you do what it normally does, like Merkulis, you throw rocks at it. So that will also get you a chimisa. Balpar has its method. So those will all trigger a chimisa. But shiras shishbachis to an avodah zar that's not specific. Avodah would not net you a chiv skila. However, it would net one lailenu a chiv of course. Rab Chananya ben Yakavi Savar, he learns differently. He learns the pasuk b'chadal lasash haPesach v'nichrasa. A person who doesn't bring the carbon Pesach Rishon will be chayav kares. Carbon Hashem lahikav b'mayali b'sheni. When will someone be chayav kares for the first carbon Pesach? If and only if he also doesn't bring the carbon Pesach sheni. So the high cheta yisa my avid. Like what is he going to do with cheta yisa? So the Markidamar and he'll do the same thing. He's going to learn that the pasuk of Makalas Hashem is not referring to the Megadev. We need to know what the Cheta Yisar means. So since by us it means Karis, that'll teach us that over there as well it means Karis. So Hilchach, let's do a summary of all the Shitas. Hizid Bazeh Ubazeh. If someone b'mezid did not bring the Pesach Rishon, and b'mezid did not bring the Pesach Sheni, Divrei Kol Chayiv. Every one of the three, Sai Rebbe, Sai Reb Nosson, and Sai Reb Chananya, would hold your Chayiv, because in either case you were mezid on the first carbon, and you were not misakin by the second carbon. How about chagig bazeh? What if you're shogig by both? Again, divrei hakoil potter, everybody would agree that you're potter from kares. But what happens if hizid b'rishon is shogig b'sheni? If by the Pesach Rishon you were amazed, and by the Pesach Sheni you were shogig. So let's think. Li Rebbe, who each Pesach is independent and can independently give you a chiv kares, avada you be mechiv kares. Li Reb Nosson, and according to Reb Nosson, who holds that the main carbon Pesach is the Pesach Rishon, and the Pesach Sheni doesn't help for anything. Therefore, he'll also be chayiv kares. But Reb Chananya b'dekav potter. Reb Chananya b'dekav holds the only way you're chayiv kares for Pesach Rishon is if you also violate Pesach Sheni b'mezid. But here you didn't violate Pesach Sheni b'mezid. Here you only violated Pesach Sheni b'shogig. Therefore, potter, you'll be potter from kares. What about on the flip side? Shogig b'rishon v'hizid b'sheni. The first carbon Pesach you were shogig, so there's no trigger for a chiyuv of kares, but you were amazed by the second one. So the Rebbe chayiv, Rebbe is the only one who holds that the Pesach Sheni will independently trigger a chiyuv of kares. But Reb Nosson, Reb Chananya Mekaveh, potter, you'll be potter from kares. Beautiful. Zok the heilige Mishnah weiter. Ezu derech hachoika. What are the parameters that say you're derech hachoika, and because of that you're potter from bringing the carbon Pesach? Min ha-Modiin ulechutz, from the city of Modiin and out, further away from the Azara. Uchamidasa l'chol ruach. So, however, if you measure the distance from the city of Modiin to the Azara, whatever that is, that's the radius that you use to determine if you're close enough that you have to bring the carbon Pesach or not. Divi Rabbi Kiva. That's what Rabbi Kiva holds. Eliezer Omer, me'eskupas ha'azara ulechutz. If you're out of the Azara, that's enough to say that you're b'derech v'chayim. Amalei Rabbi Yosef, only Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef wanted to support Rabbi Eliezer, and he said, Laficha chanokid al hey, if you look at the pasuk, va'ish asher hu tar, I'm sorry, not there. It's Daber al b'nei Yisrael, ish ki yitamel nefesh, b'derech v'chayka lachem. On the hay of the rechayka, there's a little dot. Why is there a dot on the rechayka? Loimer to teach us that it doesn't really mean that you have to be so far. Loim ipnei sherachak vaday ela mi'askupas hazar lechutz. You don't really have to be very far. The hay minimizes the impact of the word rechayka. Rashi is not going to rechayka v'chol nikid lamayit hadavar ba. It's coming to minimize the impact of the word. The mashma samyua la teva mehacha. It's almost mashma that get rid of this word. You don't really have to be so far, even if you're not in the Azara during the period of time where the carbon Pesach has to be brought. That would excuse you al derech rechayka, which is a little bit weird because you're right there, right? So the Sadig Rebbe has a sefer. I don't know the name of the sefer, but he says in the sefer is that it's a state of mind type of situation. If a person doesn't have the state of mind to bring the carbon Pesach, as a couple licknish in them, he's someone who's going to be considered derech rechayka, because you could just literally be right out of the Azara. You could be on Harabayis, and if you're just not mentally prepared to bring the carbon Pesach, you're still going to be potter out b'derech rechayka.
Yes, is there no time factor involved? Like, if he is and when you have to fizz.
Threshold of the Azara, what type of time is that? It takes a half.
No, I'm just saying maybe he's at the threshold, but it's already air. It's like, I don't know, skier or something like that. Whereas if he's derech rechayka, but he has another day to get there.
It's mashma that even if at high noon you're right outside the Azara, you can select not to make the carbon Pesach.
Anybody else
which means, according to him,
what about
the only way to over b'mezid is to stand in the Azara and not bring a carbon Pesach.
Yeah. But what about the morning? Like, why say high noon? Is there any specific time factor or when?
The reason why I said high noon is because the chiyuv to bring the carbon Pesach starts.
After. Right.
Yeah.
Anybody else besides the Sadig Rebbe?
Who says this word? Oh, says a different shot. You don't like the shot. I didn't see anything else. Rabbi Elephant spoke out. That's how they get Rebbe. Okay. Whatever I say over from Rabbi Elephant. Sometimes I remember who he says it, B'Shem. Because as I was leisurely walking here today, in no rush at all, because I thought I was early, I was able to listen to Rabbi Elephant slowly. Okay.
The article brings Yerushalmi.
What does he say?
That says that it's limiting, it's changing it from Rechoka to Rechok. As such, it can be rendered as a distant one. referring to anyone who's removed from the temple, no matter what the distance. Thus, any man on a road, comma, is distant, indicating that the main consideration is the person is removed from the temple. So just, right? The distant is coming on the person. He's distant from the Beis Hamikdash because he's on the road.
So the Yerushalmi, the Arshkas explains from a physical perspective how to understand the word rachik doesn't necessarily mean far. It means he's not at the temple. The Tzaddik Rebbe is trying to give us an understanding. Why would that be a reason to pater someone from the Korban Pesach? Get yourself in there. You're right there, right? So he says because of some, I get it. Someone helped us to buy. He's not able to do it now. Did you ever come to the Seder and say, "I just can't do this"? Never happened to me. Did it ever happen to you? Came to say, "You know what? I can't do this tonight." I don't remember that ever happening, but I guess vice the choice it could happen. Okay, Amar Ula. You know, if I can't do it, I fall asleep. You know, Amar Ula. Ula said, "Min Hamoedin Yerushalayim, from Moedin to Yerushalayim. How far is that? It's Chamisha Asr Milan. It's 15 mil. Now, if I'm not mistaken, each mil is each parsa. I think each parsa is 4 mil. So we'll see in a second. Sover law, he holds Amar Rabbi Bar Chana Amar B'Yechanan. Kama mahalach adam b'yoyim. How far can someone walk in a day? And when we say day, we mean from Alois HaShachar till Tzeisak Rechom. So what did Rabbi Bar Chana say? Asara parsois, 10 parsois, which is 40 million, because there's 4 mil in a parsa. So 40 mil is the amount that a person walking normally, a normal person walking at a normal pace, can walk 40 mil in the 12 hours from Alois HaShachar to Tzeisak Rechom.
Do you take into account whether this is in the winter, summer,
It's probably at a time where you can walk normally, right? If there's impediments, if you have to snowshoe.
I'm talking about the time. Sometimes there's 8 hours in a day, sometimes there's 12 hours.
Oh, we're talking about an equinox day. Yeah. We're
It's
talking
like
about
20
equinox.
kilometers. It's not that hard. 20 kilometers in 12 hours. Even on over broken terrain, that's not that hard.
That's right. So how many, Victor, you should know from Fitbit, how many steps is that?
Yeah, it's like 20,000 steps.
Okay, there you got it.
I think it's not supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be the normal way of walking.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not, that's not in 12 hours. It's not crazy.
Okay, so Kama Mahalach Adam B'Yoim Asar Parsoyos. Alois HaShachar, I would actually ask, I didn't see this anywhere. Nowadays, let's say the Mashiach came, and today we have air travel. Does that mean that the amount of travel in time that it takes to go 15 parsoyos, that amount is also going to be the amount of time? So since we have airplanes, we can get a lot faster.
So we have the Shiloh by washing. We have the Shiloh by minion, right?
So like David asked,
18.
Is it 18 minutes or is it what?
Is it the distance? Is it the distance or is it the time? We have this Shiloh by davening, right? Davening with a minion by
nowadays
washing.
Nowadays we can cover a much greater distance much easier. So David asked, what about if I use an animal? So it's actually walking. It's not using an animal. You're not mechuyev, or there's a shaila actually. If you're mechuyev to rent a horse to rush to get there faster, but we're talking about normal walking. That's only we're only mechayev you to get there at that period of time with normal walking. So Rabbi which is 40 mil from Alois to Tzeis. Now, Alois HaShachar ad Netzachamo. How about how much time do you have from Alois to Netz? Chameshes million. A person could walk 5 million in the time between Alois and Netz. Mishkiyas Achama vat Tzeis HaKrechavim. Mishkiyat at Tzeis again Chameshes million. So if I'm starting off with 40 mil, which is how much you could do in a full day, and I subtract the 5 mil in the morning until Netz, and the 5 mil in the afternoon from Shkia to Tzeis, Pashula Tolson. I now know that from Netzachama to Shkia, a person could walk 30 mil. So let's think about it. And if I divide a day in half, Chameser Nitzafra Lapal Gediyema, 15 mil I'd be able to walk, or we're talking about an equinox day. So I'd be able to walk 15 parsa from daybreak, from Netzach Chama until noon. The Chameser mipalgad yom l'urta, and I can also walk 15 mil from noon until Shkia.
Yosy, why would you talk about equinox day if it's not equinox? Pesach is Pesach. It's not.
Pesach is
not
actually
near.
equinox time of the year.
It is?
Pesach is equinox. Yeah, it's springtime. That is when the equinox is.
Springtime.
Pesach is pretty close to the equinox,
I thought
to
equinox.
the
is-
spring equinox. Ula all the time. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Ula Tamei, Ula is going according to his tam. Ula, Ezehu, Derech Rechaika, Kol She'en Yochel Likanes, B'Shash Chita. So Ula says that the reason why we're talking about Tam Chatzois, because we want to know that you're far enough away that you wouldn't be able to get there B'Shash Chita. So where does the Chiyuv start? When is the Chiyuv triggered to bring the carbon Pesach? At noontime. At noontime, it starts, it ends by Shkia. So if at that point in time, at noontime, you're within 15 mil of the Azara, then you'll be Mechuyev, because you could still arrive there. You could still arrive there before the end of the period where you're allowed to bring the carbon Pesach. So Ula says, Der Chayka depends on the Shashchita. If when the Shashchita starts at noontime, I'm able to get back to the Azara before the end of the Shashchita, before the window closes at Shkia, then I'm a Chuyev. And that's where he came to the conclusion that it's 15 mil, because 15 mil is the amount of distance a person could travel in that half a day. Toisus just points
Why
out.
is it not when he has to eat it? Like why?
I'm sorry?
If he's already if he's already registered, why does it have to be by shchita? It could be when they have to eat it, you know? Or when they does zrika.
This is the eat
So,
it.
so you're asking a very good question, but that is a machlokas, I think, between Reb Nachman and Reb Sheshes. What if I'm far away now and I'm not going to be there? I'm not going to be there during the processing. Can I join in a carbon? Why do I have to be there? So
No, if
Reb
he's already-
Nachman agrees to you that you don't have to be there and you could do it. Reb Sheshes holds you cannot, because the Torah is telling you if right now you're in a situation where you're far away, you're not mechuyev. You like your tummy. You cannot bring the carbon. You cannot bring the carbon even if you want to. But that's exactly the machlokes of Nachman and Reb Sheshes.
Is that almost
So
the
let's-
same as the machlokas of when somebody was tummy and all they had to do was go to the mikveh versus, remember we had the machlokas?
That's right. And the Gemara actually linked them. The Gemara actually, on Amud Aleph, the Gemara said it, their machlokes is totally, and if you hold that a Tamei Sheretz, who's going to be Torah tonight, will he be able to participate in the carbon? So the Gemara says, if you hold he could participate in the carbon, then you would hold that, like Dovi says, you should also be able to participate in the carbon by having someone do it on your behalf. And if you hold that if you're Tamei, and if you're Tamei B'Sheretz, even though you'll be Torah tonight, you cannot participate in the carbon, so too you would hold that if you're B'derech Chayka, you cannot participate in the carbon, even though in either case you can get somebody to process the carbon for you.
Even though you
Omar.
can be there in time to
Right?
eat it. Even though you can still be there in time to
That's
eat
right.
it. 'cause
Even
you're
though I'll be there on time to eat it. That's correct. Even though I'll be there to eat it, for instance, Tamei Sheretz, come nightfall, I'm good to go. So I'm perfectly able to eat it. Nevertheless, there's a shita who holds that you're not allowed to participate in the carbon because you're tummy now. Omar, the Gemara just said as a fact that in the period of time between Alois Shachar and Netzachama, you can walk 5 million. Minolan, how in the world do you know that? Tichsiv. So it's very funny because Chaim Tzvi mentioned to me yesterday. Sometimes, if it's a mitzvah, or you could it's a mitzvah, you can pace it out. He can get the time of Nates, he can get the time of Alois, and see how far he can walk. But the Gemara teaches us that a better raya than mitzias is if the Torah says it. So look what it says over here. Minolan, how do you know that? Tichsiv uchemoya shachar Allah. This was by light. As soon as it was Alois Shachar, by Yitzra Malachim, the Malachim told Lot, we better get out of here. And Lot left with the Malachim at Alois Shachar. By the time Netzachama arrived, the Lot had already arrived in the city of Tzayar. So from the time of Alois till the time of Netz, Lot was able to travel from where he was until Tzayar. I actually paced it out. I measured it out. And it was 5 million. So that's how I know that from Netzach Hama to Alois Shachar, or from Alois Shachar to Netzach Hama, one could walk 5 million. And I guess we're assuming that that same time is the same time between Shkia and Seis. Gufa, Amar Ula, Ezehu Derech Rechoika. What's called the Derech Rechoika? Kol she'ein yochel likanis b'shas shchita. If I can't get back fast enough to be there during the shchita, even though I can get back for the achila, nevertheless, that's Derech Rechoika, and I would be potter from bringing the carbon Pesach Rishon. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Kol she'ein yochel likanis b'shas achila. It has to be that I can't get back b'shas achila, which means if I'm standing now at high noon, I'm standing now at the point where the beginning of the Shchitas HaPesach starts. If I can get back by the next morning, then I'm close enough. Amalei Rava. So Rava tells, so Rabbi Yehuda allows you to be much further away. Amalei Rava Lula. L'didach kasha ula Rabbi Yehuda kasha. It's shver on your shita, and it's shver on Rabbi Yehuda shita. L'didach kasha, it's shver on you who holds that you have to be within 15 mil. Kasha, the Amrit you said, kol shein yachal likanis b'shas shchita. But the problem is, v'hatame sheretz, which is really a question that David Leibman asked, v'hatame sheretz, then yachal likanis b'shas shchita. Atame sheretz, you cannot come in b'shas shchita because b'shas shchita is still tame. He has to wait for tonight. Because Amrit, yet Ula himself holds sheichtin v'zarkin al tame sheretz. Ula himself holds that if someone's a tame sheretz, he could participate in the carbon because he'll be ready for the shas achila. So oibazoi, why is it that if I'm far away and I can't be there for the processing of the carbon, yet I'll arrive just in time for Yom Tov to eat the carbon Pesach? Why Ula do you hold that's their choika? If you see by Tameh, as long as I can be here for the achila, I'm eligible for the carbon. So the derech rechoika should similarly be, as long as I can get back for the achilas of carbon, I should still be mechuyev. That's the kasha on Ula. Rabbi Yehuda kasha to Amar kol she'en yachal lekanis b'shas achila. He holds that you have to be so far away that even if you're there for the achila, it wouldn't be a problem. You have to be so far away that you can't even be there for the achila. Only then are you potter. But the problem is, atame sheretz the yachal lekanis b'shas achila. Atame sheretz where you would be able to be there for the achila. Because Amar, you said ein sheichtin v'zarkin al atame sheretz. So you both taken positions that are contradictory. Amar lei. So Ula said loy the dikasha lei v'loy the Rabbi Yehuda kasha. It's not shver according to me, and it's not shver according to Rabbi Yehuda. And the reason why it's not shver is because you're assuming that the same parameters that dictate when a Tameh may or may not participate in the Carbon Pesach are linked to the parameters as to when a Derech Rechoika can or cannot participate. And I'm going to tell you they're completely different things. The problem of Derech Rechoika applies to someone who's tar, and that those parameters are totally in the Asiyas HaPesach, and therefore, if you cannot be there for the Asiyah, if you're tar and you cannot be there for the Asiyas HaPesach, that's going to disqualify you from participating, and it's not a svara, it's a gzeres HaKasav. The ein Derech Rechoika l'tamei, but Derech Rechoika has nothing to do with a tamei. By a tamei, it's not about a Derech Rechoika, it's about the achila. And as he says, it's by Derech Rechoika, the Torah is focusing on the Asiyah, and by tamei, the Torah is focusing on the achila. So therefore, by Derech Rechoika, I cannot be there for the Asiyah. I'm not going to be mechuyev to bring the carbon. But by tamei, the Torah focuses on the achila, and therefore, since I will be able to eat the carbon tonight, because I'll be tar tonight, avada, I'm mechuyev in the carbon. Okay, let me see if Rashi says so. Beferish, l'dila kasha da'af al gav, the derech rechoika patrana lahai v'chazi la'urta u'mechayabna lei tabi tami sheretz. Even though the Torah says you're potter if you're b'derech rechoika, but you're chay for sheretz, hanyu tami derech rechoika talar chmana b'tur the tahar. The Torah was pottering the person who's tahar from bringing the carbon pesach. The Torah says it's dependent upon someone who can be there during the shchita, the gabay asiyah, because when it talks about derech rechoika, it talks about asiyah. So let's see the pasuk. Ishish ki yitame l'nefesh abederech rechoika lechem oila derzechem v'asa pesach. So since the derech rechoika is closest to the v'asa pesach, it teaches us that by derech rechoika, the Torah wants you to be able to be there for the processing of the carbon. But by the time of the nefesh, it's not connected to the processing of the carbon. It's connected to the achila of the carbon. Now, the Rabbi Yehuda like kasha, it's not shver according to Rabbi Yehuda either, because tamei sheret rechman nidachia. By a tamei sheret, the Torah specifically pushed away somebody who is tamei today, even though he'll be Torah tonight, like we already learned earlier. Isn't the case we had proven with Rabbi Yitzchak that the case was there where these people were on day 7 of their tahira of Tumas Mace. They could have had this Rika and they would have been very available to do the carbon tonight. Yet the Torah said that they shouldn't do it. So by Tameh, the Torah is makbid that if you're Tameh during the preparation of the carbon, the Torah specifically says, even though you can eat it tonight, nevertheless you're nitche. But it said by derech chayka, as long as you can get back anytime during the achila, I would allow you to remain part of the carbon. Let's just finish off. Someone who was out of Median. This was David Leitman's question. So he's far enough away that during normal walking he can't get there. But if he hires an express train, if he makes extra effort, he'll be able to get there on time. You might have thought you would be chayiv. He was on the road. So since he was on the road, even though he can expedite himself to get back, he's still part to bring the carbon. What if he was within my din, but he has a lot of vehicles and stuff that weigh him down, and therefore if he tries to bring all those things with him, that's going to slow him down slower than the normal transportation mode. There's too much traffic, so and he doesn't want to walk, he wants to drive. But there's so much traffic, it's going to be very slow. I'm sure there were traffic jams in those days. You might think he should be chayiv. He wasn't b'derech. He was close enough that he could have walked there. He wants to sit in the comfort of his limousine. That doesn't make him b'derech v'chayta. So it's mistaber to say that even if nowadays that we have airplane travel, that wouldn't make a difference. It's totally in that time of if someone would walk, if he could get there, and that would be 15 mil according to Allah. Okay, let's stop here. And once again, I'm very, very sorry about that miscommunication of not realizing that I didn't make clear that it was Purim. I meant I wanted to learn 5:30 on Purim day because the main minyan Dagoda is starting at 6:30.
Just to be clear, tomorrow is 6 o'clock.
You're right. Tomorrow is 6 o'clock. I'm very, very sorry. Tomorrow will be 6 o'clock. You know, anything money you can make up, you can never ever make up sleep. And I don't know anybody who doesn't have a deep deficit of sleep, especially these weeks. I apologize.
All right. Have a great day.
Yeah.